Released as part of the Masters of Cinema series by Eureka Video, the beautifully designed and wonderfully produced Mabuse Lives collection features 6 of the later films from the CCC studio, featuring stories on the criminal genius known as Dr. Mabuse, a name that strikes fear into many as a master of disguise and telepathic hypnosis with the ability to transfer his subconscious through demonic possession. This, in turn, means that his appearance can quite often change, with others committing his crimes while Dr. Mabuse is locked up or even dead. An interesting and highly original plot point, considering that the stories of Mabuse first began over 100 years ago in 1921 by German novelist Norbert Schachs. But it would only be a year later that accomplished film director Fritz Lang brought the bestseller to the big screen, albeit via a revised version written by himself and second wife Thea von Harbaugh. Running around 4 hours in length, Lang's Dr. Mabuse the Gambler was released in 2 parts and proved to be as big a success as its original material. Having been kept busy with the 5-hour-long Die Nibelungen in 1924, the highly praised Metropolis in 1927, science fiction film Woman in the Moon in 1929, and killer thriller M in 1931, it would be just over 10 years later before Lang delivered the first sequel, The Testament of Dr. Mabuse, in 1933, with the original actor Rudolf Klein-Rogge returning as the titular character, and the film itself getting a ban by the Nazi regime. After making his move to Hollywood to escape Hitler and his war, Lang made a host of classics including Manhunt, Cloak and Dagger, Scarlet Street, and The Big Heat in 1953. But in 1960, as ill health caught up with him and blindness set in, the celebrated filmmaker would make a return to his criminal mastermind with The Thousand Eyes of Dr. Mabuse, his final project as the director and the first of a new series of films produced by Otto Bronner, not to mention the first title of this fantastic box set from Eureka.
Dr. Mabuse. Mabuse.
Ein Genie des Verbrechens. Wollte durch Terrorakte die Bevölkerung.
Set in and around a German hotel from the Nazi era that was adapted to spy on all guests, the mysterious Dr. Mabuse returns after years of absence to cause more fear and death, using hypnotized victims and the hotel's old surveillance equipment to steal the nuclear technology from a visiting American guest. Why have I never seen these films before? The Thousand Eyes of Dr. Mabuse is a wonderful introduction to the series, tremendously directed and wonderfully acted in that special 1960s kind of way. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The cast was just fantastic, one of which was the prolific and enjoyable Gert Frobe, the infamous Goldfinger himself from the 007 adventure of the same name that came about just 4 years after this. But unlike his James Bond counterpart, Frobe's portrayal of Inspector Crass is both humorous and enjoyable. Likewise, the great Wolfgang Priess is equally as brilliant as the master of disguise, Dr. Mabuse, and his many alter egos. I must also give credit to Eureka for making my first-time watch even better with their stunning 2K restorations of the film and its sequels contained. I don't think I've seen a more prominent title of black and white cinema look as great as this did in some time. In The Return of Dr. Mabuse, this time directed by Harold Raynel, the genius supervillain gets back to work by using brainwashed prison inmates to do his evil deeds and killings. But Commissioner Lohman is on the case, with Gert Frobe returning, formerly known as Inspector Crass, aided by an American FBI agent, Joe Como, and a gutsy female reporter. Also known as the FBI vs. Dr. Mabuse, In the Steel Net of Dr. Mabuse, and The Phantom Fiend, among many others, The Return of Dr. Mabuse delivers another exciting and beautifully made crime mystery with some great moments of surprise. These include the burning of a woman with a flamethrower, which was actually quite realistic and a well-executed scene, while an exciting car chase, explosion in a church, a man's suicide out a window, and the water room escape keeps viewers glued to the screen. The Invisible Dr. Mabuse follows that, which is an interesting one that takes the comic book element of the famed criminal to another level. In an attempt to steal the secret of invisibility from a professor, Mabuse's plans are thwarted when the police and FBI become involved after someone is killed at a popular theatre and the body count keeps rising. While not as gripping as the previous two, the invisible Dr. Mabuse gets better as it moves along and still proves to be a fun watch, with FBI agent Joe Como returning as the hero. A loose remake of Fritz Lang's 1933 original, The Testament of Dr. Mabuse, follows, this time directed by Werner Klinger. Also known as The Terror of Dr. Mabuse and The Terror of the Mad Doctor, the film carries many changes to the previous version that sees Gert Frobe return as the brilliant Commissioner Lohmann to solve a string of crimes and robberies that bear the markings of master criminal Mabuse. But the crazed doctor is locked up in a local asylum, so how can he be involved? The Testament of Dr. Mabuse is a great addition to the series and a decent remake overall, with the great Wolfgang Prius appearing once again as the titular evil genius. Wonderfully shot and acted, exciting and humorous at times, the film looks even more stunning than ever in this new 2K restoration. In Scotland Yard hunts Dr. Mabuse, also known as Dr. Mabuse vs. Scotland Yard and Scotland Yard in Pursuit of Dr. Mabuse, the spirit of the recently deceased Dr. Mabuse takes over the body of a famous German professor. Accepting himself as the new master criminal, Professor Mabuse begins another reign of terror with plans to overthrow the British government. While not as slick as those that came before it, Scotland Yard hunts Dr. Mabuse still proves to be an exciting romp from director Paul May, the very same man behind 1959's Duel with Death and many episodes of the popular German TV series of Sherlock Holmes. Wolfgang Prius shows up as the ghost of Dr. Mabuse, while regular actor Werner Peters returns as yet another different character, this time as the inspector on the case. Peter Van Eyck returns for the first time since The Thousand Eyes of Dr. Mabuse, again as a different character, with a young Klaus Kinski appearing as another detective. Prolific German actress Agnes Windeck is also a joy to watch as Van Eyck's cigar-smoking wannabe detective mother. The final movie of the collection is 1964's The Death Ray of Dr. Mabuse, directed by the great Hugo Friganesi, the very same man behind films such as Man in the Attic, Marco Polo, and Black Tuesday. Once again, Mabuse possesses another body to commit his crimes, threatening the world with a new death ray that he has developed. It's perhaps the most outlandish plotline of this collection yet, but at a time when James Bond villains were just as inventive, it works pretty well for its decade of release. While it lacks the mysterious Mabuse feel that the others did so well, The Death Ray of Dr. Mabuse still proves to be an enjoyable spy thriller respectively. Peter Van Eyck takes the lead one more time, again as a different character than before, while Wolfgang Prius only appears through archival footage taken from the other films. Interestingly, an extended Italian version of the film accompanies the original on the disc, coming in at around 17 minutes longer, with an alternate edit that changes up the order of the footage somewhat. The film was also released in the United States as The Secret of Dr. Mabuse.
Aber in letzter Zeit sind einige Verbrechen verübt worden, die ganz im Stile von Dr. Mabuse liegen.
Ich habe Ihnen hypnotische Befehle auf telepathischem Wege erteilt.
Overall, I really can't express just how pleased I am with this new release from Eureka Video. Wonderfully put together with gorgeous artwork from Tony Stella, along with a host of informative audio commentaries and exciting extra features, some of which are new and some archival, including those alternate endings for The Thousand Eyes of Dr. Mabuse and The Death Ray of Dr. Mabuse, as well as 6 fantastic films with stunning 2K restorations, which highlights their beautiful cinematography and gorgeously composed scores even more. I can't recommend this collection enough, a must for any true cinephile and fans of 1960s cinema. The Mabuse Lives collection, Dr. Mabuse at CCC 1960 to 1964, is well worth picking up and a great introduction to classic German cinema from some of the finest directors of that era.